Cool. Welcome back to Houston Life. Our next guest is an expert in helping families, couples, and individuals build healthier relationships and a stronger sense of self.
Yeah, and for Mental Health Awareness Month, she's shifting focus inward and helping us understand how our habits and behaviors can be shaped by past experiences. Joining us with more is psychotherapist and owner of Pinkerton Psychotherapy, Jenn Pinkerton. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I think it's so important, number one, that we overall touch on how important it is to more than just 1 month, right? May is for mental health awareness,
Yes.
but really focus and hone in for 1 month on our very own mental health.
Absolutely. I look at Mental Health Awareness Month as an invitation. It's the time for you to check in with yourself. You know, how regulated are you? Are you just surviving? How do you feel? And use that time to really be this moment that you pay attention to it.
Jenn, you hold a Master of Science in Marriage and Family Therapy. You're currently pursuing your PhD in clinical sexology. That will be done in just a few months. You also have the podcast Redhead Reveal. So I know you're out there doing a lot of things. Talk to us about how during this month we can really focus on mental health, because you assert that our minds and our bodies are more connected than we realize.
Absolutely. We are truly made up in this way that our body keeps the score. It remembers everything we choose to forget. And when we feel really triggered, when we get angry, when we maybe act out in a way we're not super proud of, most often it's our body remembering that feeling or recognizing a past wound or something that's created this feeling in us that we don't feel emotionally safe.
So when you think about the first thing that you should do to feel safe, to take back a breath, maybe you just need to relax a second, where do you start with something like this?
I call it power in the pause.
Okay.
Understanding that we do have that inherent power, and we can slow down a little bit to be able to stay regulated, to go down into the part of our brain that keeps us responsible for some logical thought, instead of when we get a little maybe irrational or dysregulated or out of control. And so understanding how to slow down is the number one thing, and that allows your body and your mind to integrate a little bit more.
We've all been through it, right? Anytime we are starting a new job, or maybe we have a new friend, it could be social, professional, romantic, right? We're all bringing some level of baggage with us, Jenn. And you have a concept that you consider the big T and the little t. The T stands for trauma.
Yes.
Talk about this concept.
Yes, it's widely known. People think about trauma, but they think about it being something really huge. You've witnessed, a murder, big abuse, things that are very, very mind-blowing. But there's also little T trauma, which are these small things that shape us, that affect us. There are times in which you feel like you're not enough. You feel like you don't belong. You feel like maybe people always leave. And they're these core wounds and thoughts and feelings from experiences, and your body remembers that. And so if you later on experience a moment where you feel as though I'm not enough, you're taken back to that original time in your body, and then you're going to be dysregulated. You're not going to show up in a way that you want to be able to show up.
And these little things can be at the workplace too, right? You maybe have put too much on your plate, or just little things that keep adding up that make the small T into a big T.
When you work on understanding what your wounds are and understanding what holds you back, it will change everything. How you show up professionally, how you show up personally, how you show up romantically, how you parent. It really is a life-changing experience to be able to understand why we are the way we are, and then do some work to transform from that. Do some work to change that narrative or that voice in our head.
What about folks who fall into this pattern of these, it's almost like an internal dialogue. You're telling yourself, oh, well, I'm not good enough, or I can't do that, or this happened to me when I was younger. Just from our own perspective, but also, what if we're dealing with someone in our life? Let's say someone we love. It's, well, when this happened to me, almost like they're reliving their trauma with you as the audience every single day. How do we navigate that? Because a lot of people have a really tough time moving forward.
Yes, and they sound stuck from what you're telling me.
Yeah.
People can get stuck in those stories. We feel sometimes in a victim mentality because we're hurting and we don't know how to process those feelings. So if you do some emotional work to be able to process how you feel, to be able to work on that story in your head, because it's really just a script that you've created, we can also create a different one. We can basically rewrite that. We can reparent ourselves. We can re-experience feelings in a different way and decide that we want to choose to feel differently about it in general.
Yeah, there's people that just constantly keep with the same line, and I feel like you're hearing the same story over and over, but with no different outcome.
It's exhausting.
Yeah,
and
it
it's
is
not
exhausting.
productive.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's exhausting for them too. They just maybe don't know how to pivot from that.
Yeah.
But I really do fundamentally believe everybody can grow from that. It just takes some emotional work, a little bit of labor to decide that it's worth it to me to process how I feel and to choose to actually feel my feelings so that I can maybe come out on the other side and it will feel different.
Maybe a little guidance from Jenn as well. I want to mention the storyteller versus truth teller dynamic. Can you explain to me what this is?
Yes, this is a big platform for me that I talk about. I think that we are all storytellers. We take all of our wounds, all of our feelings, who we are, we just make this decision, and that's what we present to the world. But we actually have the choice to investigate what is our real truth. Are we taking this story that's not real? Have we decided that people always leave? Have we decided that I'm not good enough? Have we decided that I don't belong? And that's not our truth. That's a story that we adapted to feel safe. But we can actually learn to look at it differently, learn how to capture our own emotional safety, and then live our truth, live our best life, live in a place where we're not held back from things like that.
Well, I love having you as a guest, Jenn, because you always empower us. And we have on our screen, calmness is not just a mental state, it's a physical state. Creating new scripts. What are some of the ways that we can start rewriting that, creating a new script so that our mind is not falling into these same patterns?
Right.
I look at it as an invitation for you to slow down. And if you're someone that has this story in your head, think about that. Write it down. Take some time to journal. Take some time to learn ways to integrate your body and your mind, whether that's breath work, meditation, journaling, things that cause you to slow down so that we can regulate our nervous system and become more emotionally regulated. It's really this whole big package that has to work together. And we can't treat the mind and the body as two separate things. It all works cohesively.
Can we mention the enchilada queen who was here the other day? So Sylvia Casares, who in 2012 was shot by a former business associate with whom she had been romantically linked, she talked to Lauren and me about, hey, I forgave him and I was able to move on. And I think that these little examples, I mean, again, we've all been through something, maybe not quite as traumatic as that, but I think your tip of writing it down, Jenn, maybe that is the right first step for someone who maybe can't get over a past relationship or a past trauma.
Well, you have to slow down. If we don't slow down, we're not able to analyze or think about how we feel. And just like the person you're explaining, they obviously made a decision that I want to be able to feel differently about that. It starts with a decision to say, I really don't like the way I'm feeling. I don't like the story in my head. I don't like how held back I feel. I don't like how stuck I feel. And to be able to recognize that we have to slow down. We've got to investigate how we're feeling. We've got to process that. And then we need to write that new narrative. And journaling is just one way. But it all starts with that pause. That's the first thing, because otherwise we're the runaway freight train on our feelings every time something triggers us or bothers us.
Yeah.
Wow.
Write it down and then you put it out in the universe, right? And you make it happen. It's believable.
Certainly.
It's right there. Absolutely.
Get a nice pen and journal. Okay, so Jenn Pinkerton, soon to be Dr. Jenn Pinkerton. Stay right there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation about how these emotional patterns show up in our relationships. That's when Houston Life returns.
All right, we are back with connection expert and psychotherapist Jenn Pinkerton. We have chatted with her earlier on how our past experiences shape our lives through the stories that we continue to tell ourselves.
Right, and maybe we can break that cycle. So looking at those stories, those emotional wounds, those wounds can show up in our relationships. And we're talking not just romantic, but social relationships, professional relationships. When we are navigating a new situation or relationship, Jenn, you assert that we go sometimes for situations that feel familiar. So maybe if we've had a toxic relationship in the past, sometimes we might think, oh, I have such great chemistry. That's not necessarily the case.
No, because we repeat what we don't heal. And our body loves things that feel familiar. Our nervous system likes things that feel familiar. So if you had a lot of chaos growing up, you might gravitate towards relationships that feel like chaos because it feels like home. But that's not necessarily where you need to be. And so it really requires you to examine, how did I grow up? How do I feel about things? How are my prior relationships? What am I looking for? And make a decision to be a little more careful in what you're attracted to.
Well, and this I think is so incredible because what you're saying is what feels like maybe as a spark can actually be a red flag, a warning
Yeah,
sign,
it's
like
so
danger. This is a familiar
That's right.
yet unhealthy situation.
It's not butterflies, it's actually the tiger in the room.
Yeah. But let me ask you this. These are some great ways to recognize an unhealthy relationship. I know a lot of people just fall back into it. They can't break unhealthy habits. And I told you off camera, I'm really bad with holding a grudge. And I don't know where it really stemmed from, but I have a hard time sometimes, I think, when people have hurt me, letting that go and moving on. But pause is the key.
Definitely, and to understand how does it serve you and where did that come from? I think it's just the self-examination and the self-awareness that we're not in the habit of doing until we decide to do that. And when we become someone that we start to check ourselves and think about, why are we feeling this way? What is that about? And where did that come from? What's the origin point? That investigative work, that inventory that you can do for yourself can really cause you to see things a lot more clearly, but we have to slow down in order to do that.
Okay.
Jen, sticking with this holding a grudge against your ex's topic, how do you know when it's maybe time to do that work or maybe seek professional help, go see someone like you? Like, let's say you have a bad relationship from your past. Maybe you're in a new relationship or in a new place and time and part of your life where you're totally happy. But that person sometimes pops up in your head, like, gosh, he was so terrible. How do you know when it's a problem? Because I think it's normal to have little things that remind us of bad relationships in the past.
Sure, but I think that it helps anyone to be able to talk about your feelings because most people don't know how to do that. So getting professional help, seeking out someone who's licensed to help you to understand how to process your feelings is huge. And I tell everyone, it takes two things to actually feel so much better in your life, and that's having interest and commitment. And if you have those two things, you can pivot, you can transform.
Commitment to
Commitment to change, commitment to grow, and interest to being willing to do that inventory, to self-reflect, to maybe choose to step into a different type of behaviors and patterns than you're used to.
Right, maybe changing the outlook, changing your next path, and also writing your own narrative. Right?
Absolutely. It is a choice. We get to choose what our life looks like. We get to choose how we think and feel, but a lot of people don't recognize they have that innate power in them.
Here are some tips on the screen
Good
right
tips.
now to reclaim power and write your own narrative. Self-awareness, practicing self-awareness. What do you mean by this, Jen?
How do you show up? Do you recognize it? Do you slow down and think, wow, that lunch I had with somebody was horrible? Do you ever think, well, what did I do? We don't. We normally want to point the finger at someone else. That self-awareness is, what did I do? How did I contribute? What did I say? What was my body language? What was my energy? Being able to recognize every time you're in a situation where you feel triggered, you're angry, you're scared, you're upset, what is really going on?
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
Lauren, I feel like you and I have talked about this on Houston Life. When we're around someone, sometimes maybe you have dinner with a friend, or maybe you're around a certain coworker. How does that person make you feel, right?
Yes, it's energy.
And this is one of your tips. I mean, how to identify when you are in an unhealthy relationship, not romantic necessarily, it could be social or professional. What are some of those things we should be looking for, signs that we're not in a good relationship?
If you're in a room of people and you don't feel like you belong, you don't feel like this works for you, your body is telling you something.
You're anxious.
That's right. And there's a difference between social anxiety versus actually feeling as though these aren't my people. And I think you understand, what are your drivers in life? What kind of people do you want to surround yourself with? And do these people represent those traits? Do we slow down enough to ever think about that? That's
Yeah,
really
because
a big one.
sometimes you find yourself making plans with some of these people that are going to drain you, right?
Yes.
You're going to say yes because,
But why?
oh, but
do you
why?
have to say
Why
yes?
should I have to say yes?
Instead, let's have a boundary. Let's learn how to say, these people don't serve me. They don't make me feel good. That's not someone I want to spend my emotional energy and precious time with. And so you have that boundary statement, which says, maybe this just doesn't work for me, or I'm not interested in that, or no can also be a complete sentence.
I need to work on saying no, that's for sure.
My mom just reminded me the other day that no is a complete sentence.
It is.
I think that
It
is
is.
so empowering.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I think no matter how much time has passed since this trauma, right, everyone has a starting point, right? It's never too late to begin this work
That's
and to
correct.
move forward with
And
your life.
everyone is affected by some sort of wound. It's not worth minimizing or comparing what someone experiences versus someone else.
right.
We're all affected by something that shapes how we see the world and what our worldview is. Being able to take a little time to slow down and investigate that and understand what might be preventing you from success, what might be holding you back from building a relationship where you thrive, is really a worthwhile effort.
Oh my
Okay,
gosh,
slow
months
down.
away from
Yeah.
finishing that PhD. Soon-to-be Dr. Jenn Pinkerton. Please come back and see us
Please.
anytime.
I will. Thank
I
you.
feel better
I
just
feel better
talking to her
too.
on this couch. It was like a session I needed.
By the way, I know you want to see more, so go online, HoustonLife.tv. We have put a link to connect with Jenn on our website. Look for that scene on Houston Life section. That was great.
That was
Please
amazing.
come back.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.